So then, my fellow analysts of power, another thing that I want to actually bring up is, and I'm sure you've actually wondered this at some point as well, that why is it, or why do we actually have so many games, so many that are shipping in broken states in this bloated, ballooning industry that we call the gaming industry? Why is that? Why does it actually keep happening? Why is it a common problem, a common theme that keeps repeating itself? Like, who actually looks at the sorry state that these games are in, sees how they actually look, and they go, you know what? That's based. Ship it. Like, who in their right mind would actually do that, right? Well, you see, the thing is, it's not actually an accident, and it's not lazy devs. There's actually a system behind it. You see, my fellow analysts, payment processors are everywhere. You might think that it's just Visa, it's just global commerce, right? But the truth is, almost every single industry in the world has payment processors. Like, they are everywhere. Once you know how Visa works, you start to see these things everywhere. Like, take for example, video games, right? Now you might be asking, Ayanda, what could the payment processors be, especially when we talk about the video game industry? Like, for example, let's take Konami right now. Konami was working on Metal Gear Delta, and it just released a few days ago. And of course, it's like Konami just can't seem to get a W. It's like they are allergic to winning. The game is not performing very well. It's kind of in a sorry state, a broken mess. So then you might be asking yourself, so then where do the payment processors come in, right? Here's the thing. Konami has its own Visa-like system. Like, for example, take the managers. The managers are more or less like the processors. They are the highway that connect video games to the customers. And then in between, we have the devs, shareholders, and all those good guys, right? So then that's your payment processor right there. They are the ones who decide what state your game actually ships in. And these processors, these managers, what exactly do they do? They do a variety of things. Like, for example, they check deadlines, release schedules, they track budgets, and most importantly, they manage shareholder expectations or investor confidence. Now, I'm going to go more in depth regarding the managers and the owners because they are extremely important in what we're about to go into right now. James Burnham, right, was still using his framework. James Burnham was talking about the managerial revolution, right? And just a short synopsis would be, he basically said that the managers are the ones who actually run things, The owners don't really have power, but the managers are the ones who run things. They're the ones who get things done. So you might be asking yourself, how is it that managers have more power than the owners? That's kind of twisted. Like, isn't that, like, Ayanda, don't you have it kind of backwards? Well, you see, the thing is, for the longest time, even I was shocked, but for the longest time, I thought that the CEOs were the people in charge. But then it just turns out that CEOs are basically glorified managers. They don't own the company, they don't own the business. They take orders from what is known as the board. The board are the actual owners of the company. They take orders from those guys and they implement it, right? So then you might be thinking that, but I still don't get it. Even if they do take orders from the owners are the people that ultimately have the final say. They're the ones who have the power, right? Well, it doesn't actually work that way. The reason as to why the managers or the CEOs are the ones who are, in the end, ultimately hold all the keys is because their power, their strength lies in their level of expertise. The owners basically are passive cattle. Like, they just be like, dude, the only thing that we care about is making money. So you, the owner or the CEO, do whatever you can to make that happen. So you see, they're basically like the owners in a football or soccer club. Because in football, if you're managing a team, right, you have the owner, the people that own the team. Could be one, it could be many, doesn't really matter. And then you have what is known as the coach. So what does the coach do? The coach goes to the owner. The owner tells him, guy, my team is in a really bad shape. We have been losing titles left, right, and center. We need to take the league this year. So based on your level of expertise, that's what we need you to do. Those are the goals that we have. So then they outsource that work or those visions and aspirations to, you guessed it, to the coach. The coach, based on his level of expertise, goes and implements a system that is far more likely to get them to where they need to go. So the owner isn't necessarily able, let's say maybe the coach is implementing a rigorous training regime, right? The owner of the football club can't necessarily come and say, hey, you're not doing it right, man. Like, it's not good. Like, you're hurting them. He can't actually say that, because then the football manager could be like, dude, I know what I'm doing, okay? This is my job. I know what I'm doing. So you need to trust in him in order to get you to where you need to go. Most of the time, the managers are the ones that actually drive the ship. Sovereignty or all power basically is in their hands. So the same thing goes for those in the gaming industry, especially the managers when it comes to Konami, because they are the ones who decide ultimately how to actually go about realizing the expectations of the owners or the investors. And it's not just a Konami's exclusive thing. This goes for mostly every single branch of modern business today. Most businesses today don't have a single owner. They have multiple owners. They are publicly traded companies. They have plenty of investors. Every single person owns a small slice of the company. And the investors that have the most shares will be the ones who are able to consolidate a board of sorts and disseminate orders as well as expectations to the CEOs and the managers. That's how it usually works. Now, one of the most important things that you need to understand, my fellow analysts, when it comes to the goals or the mantra or the solid objective that is within the minds of the managers is that stability will always triumph over artistry. This is not true for most industries. There might be a few exceptions here and there, but most of the time, the managers, the CEOs, stability will always triumph over artistry. Now, what does that mean? That means that as long as we get to make money, that's all that matters. So whether a game ships in a broken state or gamers aren't happy, the jobs of the managers is not to manage gamer happiness or gamer expectations or gamer prestige, because prestige doesn't necessarily pay the dividends. That is the hardcore truth that runs the managers. That's what they believe, even though it's false. Prestige, gamer loyalty does not pay dividends. Sales do. And I'd actually go as far as to say Konami is one company that best represents this philosophy. Simply due to the fact that, if you remember, Konami is the one that actually fired Hideo Kojima because he was simply too much of a liability and a threat to the company as a whole. Now you might be asking me, how the hell was Konami, the genius that he was, how the hell was he a threat or liability to Konami? Well, I'm actually glad you asked, because this particular case study reveals the mind of the managerial class or the managers, how they actually think, how they move, and the things that they actually believe. The reason as to why Hideo Kojima was a threat to Konami is because one of the things that Kojima was known for back in the early days, early 2000s, one of the things that he was known for, especially regarding his projects, is that they had notoriously long dev times. Now, notoriously long dev times for the managers is not a good thing. Why is it not a good thing? It's not a good thing because it means that we're not able to meet certain quarters in the year. If a game was supposed to ship at a certain date and then you extend it and be like, you know what, the game is not actually ready, I'm still like cooking it up, I want it to be perfect, that isn't good news to the managers. They would prefer that at this particular time, the game should be at this level, and if it's not there, then you're simply hurting our bottom line, because the game should have been out by now, and it's not, They don't necessarily care what state the game is in. They're more concerned about just ship it and we'll patch it later. So that's one thing. Another thing is that with each and every single success, Kojima's, what can I say, his aspirations as a director grew ever more larger. More expansive worlds, more money, more budget for his next projects. And Konami simply sees that as a threat and a liability to the company, because what if he fails this time? You know, it would basically sink our company. One company cannot live or be undone by the whims of one guy. Our company cannot be held slave to the desires and expectations of one man. So it is a liability to Konami, to the point whereby for Metal Gear Solid 5, it's rumored that the game had an incredible budget, 80 million, in order to make that game, which was by far the most expensive project that Konami had ever backed. So that was the breaking point. Konami had reached their breaking point. They're like, guy, we don't care anymore. We simply cannot be taking a gamble every single time you're making a new project. We don't like feeling as if we might fail this time. So that's why they parted ways with Kojima. He was too much of a liability, too much of a risk, and managers and the owners simply did not like that. So they had to part ways with him. So now the question actually arises. And what is the question, you may be asking, my fellow analysts of power? The question is simple. Why would Konami ship a broken game on purpose?